Call the meeting to order.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few things this evening. First of which is, you've probably noticed that we've got new microphones this evening, which I think are a big improvement over the ones we had previously, so they should be more reliable. They also pick up sound a bit better. However, you still need to make sure that when you speak, you're pointed toward the microphone. The other thing I'll mention is the red lights will remain on. That doesn't mean you're live necessarily. The old ones were red only when you were speaking, so I wanted to mention that. As you know, we've got a public hearing this evening on the proposal for an updated growth plan, the county's portion of that. I want to announce that the second public hearing, which will be essentially identical to this one, will be on August the 14th. That one won't be in conjunction with one of your meetings, but it'll be here in the auditorium at 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay? You have in front of you a revised report for item 22. You also have a hard copy of the site plan for item 18. You'll remember that's the one that was emailed to you and didn't make it into the packet. So we sent that to you electronically. And speaking of sending material to you electronically, as I mentioned in an email to you, I think this week or last week, we're proposing to go as paperless as we can with these agenda packages. So the idea would be that, hopefully by your August meeting, we'll find a good way to get the material to you electronically in a format that you can, readily open and view on your laptop or your iPad or something along those lines. So I wanted to mention that to you. If there's anybody that has any concerns or questions about that, let us know. Also, if there's anybody that would rather continue receiving a hard copy, or you feel like you need to because you don't have the setup that you need at home for electronic transmittals, let us know that too. We'll be working with our IT department to come up with the best way to get that to you, whether that's in a zip file or some other way, and we'll be sure to communicate that to you well in advance so that this can be as seamless as possible. Any thoughts or comments on that? All right, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. So first, next item is a public comment period, and this is a general public comment for any item on the list. There was nobody that signed up, so we will move on past the public comment to the consideration of the last meeting minutes. Do we have any comment on the last minutes? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Please vote. Motion passes. Moving on to consideration of the consent agenda. We won't read that. Are there any items that we need to pull from that for further discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Looks like we got one. We've got a motion and a second. Let's vote on those, please. Motion passes. Moving on to old business, item number 16, amendment to Articles 10, 11, 14, 23 of the Williamson County zoning ordinance regarding private landfill uses and new overlay district, item 6-2023-605. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed amendments were presented at your June 8th, 2023 meeting, and the public hearing was conducted at that time. The staff report from the June 8th meeting is attached as attachment 16.3. The proposed text amendment contains the same information as was presented in June, with the addition of changes to Article 14 in order to update the open space set-aside table to include the new proposed overlay district. Additionally, the amendment has been formatted consistent with the zoning ordinance layout. As was stated last month, to date, there have been no applications for such a use, nor has staff received any inquiries regarding a proposed private landfill in Williamson County. And Williamson County government owns and operates its own landfill, which still has many years of capacity. However, because of interest in private landfills in other counties in Middle Tennessee, it is staff's position that the county is not reasonably protected from the potential negative effects a private landfill may have on neighboring landowners when applying the current standards. For this reason, these revisions to the zoning ordinance propose the creation of a new overlay zoning district for these types of uses, as well as additional standards for private landfills, processing facilities, transfer stations, and other related uses. If the county commission adopts these revisions, a private landfill-type use can only be located in the unincorporated county following a map amendment to apply the overlay district. If that would occur, these proposed standards would have to be met before the planning commission could approve a site plan for such a use. Staff recommends approval of the proposed amendments and that the attached resolution be forwarded to the county commission with a recommendation for adoption.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any comments, discussion? If not, do I have a motion? Go ahead.
I have a question on this as far as the landfill, private landfills. We hear about other counties that they use the landfills in other counties other than their own they come to. And it says in there that we don't have, as far as when government's concerned, as far as hazardous material and medical hazardous materials, that doesn't pertain to governments. Now, would that pertain to another county that was trying to bring this material here?
So the way it's drafted right now, it's not drafted to allow a landfill that has medical waste or hazardous waste. It's just a sanitary landfill. And the other thing is, before it ever gets here, it would have to go to the county commission for approval through the Jackson law for a new landfill, a private one, and the solid waste board. And so only after those two processes are finished, and if it's still going, would it then come here requesting the overlay district, and then the county commission would rezone it for the overlay district, and then you would see a site plan. So there are multiple levels of approvals. As far as what goes in the county landfill, we don't have a say-so on it whatsoever. And private landfills, actually, some solid waste boards, the authority is potentially there to prioritize receiving in-county waste before out-of-county waste. I don't know if our solid waste board has done that or not, but thus far, we haven't had an application for a private landfill, and since the county has so much capacity, probably won't see one anytime soon, but we wanted to put these out there just in case. But a medical waste type of landfill and a hazardous waste type of landfill is a different kind of permit, and it would be my opinion that we are not permitting those with these changes.
Where it says in, I think it's G16, H, G and H, mentions that it doesn't pertain to government.
Doesn't
That was
pertain
my
to
concern.
government-owned landfills. So these standards can't apply to Williamson County's own landfill, or, well, that's the only one that would do one. I mean, it's not like one of the cities would do a landfill out in the county. And the counties are essentially exempt from this anyway, but it would be Williamson County's landfill is not subject to these standards.
Further questions? Do we have a motion on the item? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to the public hearing section, item number 17. Public hearing regarding proposed planned growth areas, PGAs, and rural areas of Williamson County, Tennessee, associated with the proposal to amend the Williamson County Growth Plan. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, you have the report in front of you that provides some information. I'm going to supplement that through a PowerPoint presentation that I'll have up and loaded up on the screen shortly. Let's see here. Okay, can everybody see that okay? All right, thanks for your patience. Okay, so this is the first of two public hearings that the county is going to be holding regarding the county's proposed amendments to the Williamson County Growth Plan. As I mentioned in the announcements, the second public hearing is going to be on August the 14th. And each of the 6 municipalities in the county are holding 2 public hearings also, a similar time frame as these 2 for us. Bear with me for just a second here. I'm not sure why this is not forwarding the slide here. Yeah. I was using the arrow keys. Is that what you would use? What'd you do?
Oh, there you go. You just have to click right there. Hit
Right
the-
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
the mouse.
Okay, I think we're going to be really smooth from here. All right, so you've seen this before. So the Williamson County Growth Plan is a county-wide plan that establishes the urban growth boundaries, which are those areas right around the cities, planned growth areas outside of the UGBs where additional development is proposed in the unincorporated rural areas of the county, and then, of course, the rural areas. This is a plan that is mandated by state legislature, and the current growth plan was adopted in 2001 and hasn't been amended since. All right, so this is the plan. This is the growth plan that was adopted in the spring of 2001 and is recorded in the Register of Deeds office. You can see that each of the 6 municipalities are in a shade, in a color. It's a little bit harder to read, but there are 2 shades of essentially the same color. The inner shade represents the city limits as they existed back in 2001, and the outer shade represents the urban growth boundary that was adopted at that time. So the boundaries, the urban growth boundaries have not changed. The planned growth areas have not changed. What's changed, of course, is the cities have continued to annex within the urban growth boundaries, and so this doesn't reflect that, but another map that I'll show you does. I will point you, it's a little bit hard to see, but out in Triune, there's a black boundary that is PGA 5, and then the other planned growth areas in the county are up in the grassland area. Those are PGAs 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you've seen this before. This is a view of the current growth plan. So obviously, we're updating the growth plan, and there's some important reasons for doing so. You know, one of which, of course, is that it hasn't been updated since 2001, and that's too long to let something like this go unchanged. Secondly, and more importantly, you'll probably recall that the comprehensive land use plan that you all adopted, you know, fairly recently still, recommends that the county collaborate with the municipalities on regional planning issues, looking at the growth plan, basically to make sure that the system of UGBs, PGAs, and rural areas work effectively. So that was actually a directive from the comprehensive plan that you all adopted. In addition to that, when we reached out to the various municipalities, they all agreed, hey, you know, we also want to change our boundaries because we need to make sure, all of us need to make sure that the growth plan is in alignment with our current land use policies and with, you know, where infrastructure is proposed to be extended. There are two key components to the growth plan. All right, that's going to be the boundaries themselves, the lines on the map, which will consist of a revised set of urban growth boundaries, PGAs, and rural areas that are developed based on a number of factors, including population projections, available land, the provision of infrastructure, and a host of other things. But this time around, we wanted to make sure that we're not just adopting a map. So the boundaries are obviously very important, but we also want to go beyond just the boundaries by establishing and adopting a set of goals and strategies that are geared toward helping the plan come to fruition and helping those PGAs, UGBs, and rural areas work as effectively as possible. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of what we're doing. All right, so this is the basically the same map I showed you at the beginning. Obviously, it's updated to reflect the current corporate limits of the various cities. Those are in gray. This time you can see those PGAs that I was talking about a lot more clearly. Those are in that kind of salmon color. So these are the existing county PGAs in rural areas. You've got the big area out in Triune, PGA 5, and then PGAs 1, 2, and 3 are consolidated together up in the north central portion of the county in the area that we refer to as grassland. All the white is the rural areas, of course. And this is the proposed county portion of this. This is what we are proposing as our planned growth areas and rural areas. And you've seen this before, just in different colors. The county's part of this is relatively easy because you all adopted a comprehensive land use plan still pretty recently, less than 3 years old, that was very specific about future development, where it should occur, and the land use policies. And so what we're doing with these changes are making sure that we're aligning our planned growth areas and our rural areas with the comprehensive plan and with our existing zoning, okay? So what you see is obviously a much smaller total area of planned growth areas, and that's a reflection of the comprehensive plan recommendations that you all adopted. You can kind of pick out these, I think, even if you can't read the place names. You've got in the east, you've got Triune and College Grove. We did special area plans for those and tailored zoning district standards. In the west, we've got Grassland and Leapers Fork, same thing, where we did special area plans and customized zoning district standards. So obviously those are kind of no-brainers. We also have added Arrington and Rudderville. You may recall that the comprehensive plan recommends that those become villages. Right now they're hamlets, but that those become villages following the adoption of special area plans for those areas. And we'll be doing those in the next couple of years. In fact, we'll be kicking off Arrington in the near future. I'll quickly kind of go through the geography in more detail, just so that you can see. This is College Grove. The red line is the boundary. It exactly matches the boundary of the College Grove Village zoning district. This is the grassland, the proposed grassland PGA. It exactly matches the boundaries of the 4 grassland village zoning districts. Same thing with Leapers Fork. It mirrors the boundaries of the Leapers Fork Village zoning district. And then in Triune, you may recall that the plan called for different character areas with different levels of development. So rather than including all of that Triune area plan geography in this, we excluded the part that was recommended for 1 unit per 5 acres and got zoned that way. And so this PGA simply reflects the existing zoning district boundaries of Triune character areas 2, 3, and 4. Okay? This is Arrington. It matches the boundaries of the existing Hamlet zoning district. And the same thing, Okay. Okay, so that's a snapshot of the areas that the county is proposing for our planned growth areas. Everything else that's not within an urban growth boundary or corporate limits is rural areas. I want to show you quickly, even though this is focused, this public hearing is really focused on what the county is proposing, I did want to show you a snapshot of a composite showing what we're proposing as well as what, at this point at least, the municipalities are proposing. This is the existing situation now showing also those urban growth boundaries. And this is the proposed plan. You can see the same thing that you saw with the PGAs. But you can see, if I can learn how to toggle back and forth. Well, you can see some subtle differences, and you've seen these before. We've updated you recently on those, and we can go back if you need to see those. Okay, so that's the boundary part of this. I mentioned a set of goals and strategies that we feel like are important to help make this all work as well as it can. So we've got a couple of goals and a number of strategies. The first goal is to simply do what we just said, ensure that the system of urban growth boundaries, planned growth areas, and rural areas function as optimally as possible. Okay, so there are a few ways that we would propose to do that. First strategy would be that the county and each of the 6 municipalities work together to create and implement interim policies related to development within the UGBs that would occur prior to the municipality's annexation of the property. Those policies could differ from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and may, among other things, relate to the following. So it would be things like county zoning policies within the urban growth boundaries, the use or the prohibition of non-traditional wastewater treatment and disposal systems within those UGBs, and also the use of interlocal agreements to address specific challenges and opportunities as they may arise. The second strategy would be to collectively, as a group of jurisdictions within Williamson County, request to the state legislature to modify annexation requirements for us to make the system work as well as it can. Part of the reason that it hasn't worked as well as it could is because of some of the hindrances to annexing property that municipalities have. And I'm not talking about annexing outside the growth boundaries here. I'm talking about their ability to annex where they've already planned public services and so forth. The third strategy would be that the municipalities don't annex outside the urban growth boundaries. We feel like if we're going to all the trouble of amending these boundaries, there should be a commitment not to annex outside of those boundaries. And so we feel like this one is important. And in fact, Christie and her counterparts with the cities are actually working on an interlocal agreement related to this one that would be done even while the plan is being developed. and I think that's important. Second goal would be regarding the continuation of this type of collaborative multi-jurisdictional planning even after the growth plan is adopted. And so the strategies would include a commitment to revisit the growth plan at least every 5 years. There's no reason it needs to sit on the shelf for as long as this one has. That is also a strategy that is being formalized now through an interlocal agreement. Strategy 2 under this goal would be to convene a growth plan implementation committee so that once the growth plan is adopted, there's a group like the group that we've been meeting with that would get together on a regular basis, maybe quarterly, to talk about important planning issues, because that coordination and cooperation between jurisdictions is going to be important. And then finally, a strategy to consider the formation of a multi-jurisdictional entity within Williamson County that focuses on transportation planning. Okay, so those are the goals and strategies that are at least in draft form at this point that would accompany the map and be part of the official plan. Okay, just real quickly as I close, you know, I've mentioned before that there's a coordinating committee. That's a committee that is prescribed by state legislation. That committee is formed and has met once and will continue to meet. This is the makeup of that committee as it has to be based on state statute. Quickly, in terms of the process, we're right now in the red. Okay, so we're at the stage of the process where each jurisdiction is required to hold 2 public hearings. This is the first that the county is holding. The second one's next month. The municipalities are going through the same 2 public hearing process currently. So once those public hearings are concluded, the jurisdictions will, potentially make some changes based on what they heard, and then present their proposal to the coordinating committee, and the coordinating committee would then prepare a draft plan. Okay, that would be the coordinating committee's recommended plan at that point, and they're then required to hold 2 public hearings, which tentatively we have pegged for the September-October timeframe. Once those public hearings take place, there'll be some refinement based on what they heard, and then at that point, the coordinating committee would transmit their recommended plan to each of the jurisdictions, each of the 7 jurisdictions, and at that point, the jurisdictions would have 120 days in order to approve the recommended growth plan. And then once that takes place, it gets ratified by the state. All right, so that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions before the public hearing starts.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Commissioner Rose?
On the first goal and first strategy, there were 3 bullet points.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered if, what would be more specific challenges or opportunity? The use of interlocal agreements to address specific challenges. What would lie outside of the first 2 bullet points?
That could be something like, the need for a new roadway project to handle traffic, and maybe something like that hypothetically could be between Franklin and Thompson Station to help facilitate, development and the provision of infrastructure associated with that in that growth boundary. So, we don't know what they might be, but things like that will come up, and so the idea of using the vehicle of these interlocal agreements, I think, can help implement that. Yeah.
Mr. Crohan?
My question on this, I was looking back where you were showing Thompson Station and Fairview, and it looks on the map like there was spot zoning done where it wasn't necessarily connected with their boundaries. Is that correct, what I saw?
Don, you're probably thinking of this map, maybe, where the municipalities are in the dark color. Actually, kind of show, it's on both,
Yeah,
but
that one
it
right
might
there.
show up a little bit better on this one. This one? That one?
That one, yes.
And you're referring specifically to,
Like Thompson Station, I'm looking there, it looks like there's a hole between where their boundary line is and where it shows the growth. And I guess my whole question, reason for asking this question is where, if they do something like that, the road situation leaves the county responsible for the roads between that?
so I'm looking, when you made that comment, I'm looking more at Fairview than Thompson Station, although I recognize that both of them are there. And there have been some annexations that have taken place that are not contiguous. And unfortunately, the state annexation law allows for that under certain circumstances. And it does present challenges. I don't think the cities would say that's their preference. And hopefully with the new boundaries being what they are, and maybe with interlocal agreements, we can influence them not to do that as much. But that's been taking place from time to time.
My concern on that is for the county as far as having to provide
Sure.
road system.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, the other thing I'll mention, Don, is that when annexations occur, we always ask them to annex the road leading to it, even if there's a gap, even if it's non-contiguous, they still can connect the roadway, and I guess that's technically how they might make it contiguous, to prevent exactly what you're talking about. Welcome.
Anybody else, any other comments?
I
Yes.
just want to make sure to correct some nomenclature. You mentioned spot zoning. This isn't zoning at all. This is just the growth plan. Everything that's in the proposed UGBs is going to stay in the county until it's in a city. So the zoning won't occur by the cities until after they annex it. And it may look like it on the map, and maybe some of these are older, but since non-contiguous annexation law was allowed, it requires that the county has to participate in the discussions and actually have an agreement with the cities on how those interim roads are handled in law enforcement. And I'm not aware that we've done any of those since that's been part of the law. And so, as I said, it may look like that on the map, but as far as the procedure for doing so, I'm not aware that it's happened yet. So it may be that some of these are older, but it's a lot. It's not easy to do that, and it wouldn't happen without the county's participation and discussion and agreement, because there is that interim area that the county's still responsible for. So I just want to clarify a few things.
Thank you. Anything else before we go to the public hearing portion?
I just have just a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thanks to Mike for his work. I know you've been working on this for a very long time, so I appreciate it.
Robin, can you repeat that, please?
On. There you go. I just wanted to say thank you to Mike and everyone involved in implementing this.
Well, thank you, and there's a lot of people who have been involved with this, and we have a good staff and a lot of good people working on it, but thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing on item number 17. You will be allowed 3 minutes to make your statement. And we did have one person sign up. It is Russ, is it Waxton? Wharton? Signed the wrong form. Okay, thank you. So we will open and close the public hearing portion of item number 17.
And no action is required.
So we're not taking action. Okay, it's just a public hearing. Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. All right, moving on to item number 18, non-residential site plans. Site plan review for St. Barbara's Coptic Orthodox Church on 32 acres located on Clovercroft Road in the 4th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting approval of an approximately 34,700 square foot building for St. Barbara's Coptic Orthodox Church as well as the associated parking. Property in question is located on Clovercroft Road, approximately 7/10 of a mile west of Pleasant Hill Road. Property surrounding the parcel in question range in size from 4 acres to over 100 acres and are used primarily for residential and agricultural purposes. Water to the site is served by Nolensville College Grove Utility District, which has indicated that no bond is required. Wastewater will be handled via on-site septic, and the Williamson County Department of Sewage Disposal Management has reviewed and approved the request. A traffic access analysis was performed by the applicant and reviewed by the county's traffic consultant. No roadway improvements are required in conjunction with this development. A landscaping plan has been reviewed and approved by staff. Site plan is in order, and staff recommends approval with the following conditions. Number 1, prior to submission of building permit applications, the posting of a performance bond for landscaping improvements in the amount of $213,917. Number 2, submittal to and approval by the county engineer for stormwater calculations and the grading and drainage plan prior to issuance of a land disturbance permit. Number 3, execution of a performance agreements for the above referenced surety. Number 4, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And number 5, all signage must be approved per ordinance requirements.
Thank you. Any discussion on item number 18? Yes, Commissioner Rose?
I'm looking at this map.
Yes, ma'am. Is it outlined in black? Yes, that's part of the property. It'll remain vacant. It is being used as part of the required open space, so it'll remain vacant.
Further questions? Do we have a motion on item number 18? Thank you. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 19 under concept plans. I want to call on Commissioner McCord.
Yes, Chairman, I need to recuse on this vote, please.
Thank you. Item number 19, concept plan revised review for the homes at Mulberry Meadows subdivision containing 27 lots on 198.4 acres located on Telefero Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A concept plan for this subdivision was approved at the July 2022 meeting. During the course of preparing the first final plat, a surveying error was discovered. The error involves 2 of the property's perimeter boundary lines, which are found behind lots 101 through 115. This revision corrects these errors. No other changes are proposed, and staff recommends approval with the same conditions established with the original approval.
Thank you. Any comments on item, any questions or comments for item 19? Do I have a motion on that? Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 20, concept plan review for the arbors at Leapers Fork subdivision containing 18 lots on 380 acres located on Hargrove Road in the first voting district. Staff?
Thank you, sir. The applicant is requesting concept plan approval for an 18-lot traditional subdivision in the Rural Preservation 5 zoning district. Concept plan approval is the first stage in the development review process. Previously, the applicant has submitted 3 separate large lot easement subdivisions for this property, and each received preliminary plat approval. However, the applicant believes, and staff concurs, that a single traditional subdivision with one entrance off Hargrove Road is a far superior plan. If approved, this concept plan will supersede the 3 previously approved preliminary plats. The subject property totals approximately 380 acres in size and is located off Hargrove Road, approximately 6/10 of a mile north of its intersection with Pinewood Road. The property also has frontage on Pinewood Road and Boy Scout Road. Surrounding properties are generally large and either undeveloped or contain single-family dwellings. From a natural resources standpoint, the site is almost entirely wooded and also contains moderate and very steep slopes and several streams. Within the proposed development, lots range from approximately 5 acres to 31 acres in size. The overall density is 0.05 dwelling units per acre. Approximately 68 acres of the site will be preserved in open space. Access to the proposed development will be provided from a single entrance on Hargrove Road, which is classified as a local roadway by the Major Thoroughfare Plan. Because of the very low density proposed, a traffic study is not required. Internal roadways will be privately maintained. Wastewater will be handled via individual on-site septic systems, and the Williamson County Department of Sewage Disposal Management has reviewed and approved the request. Water service is provided by HP&TS Utility District. While the district can provide water to the site via an existing 8-inch line on Hargrove Road, they are unable to provide fire flows for the subdivision. As a result, the applicant is requesting a variance from Section 3.05B of the subdivision regulations, which requires fire hydrants with 500 gallons per minute of flow within major subdivisions. Based on discussions with the fire marshal for Williamson County Fire and Rescue, the applicant is proposing a number of measures to employ in lieu of the hydrants. Those measures include sprinkling all structures with residential fire suppression systems, separating building envelopes by at least 200 feet, and ensuring that all residential driveways are at least 12 feet in width. It should be noted that fire hydrants are not required within large lot easement subdivisions. Therefore, if the variance is approved, the fire protection situation will still be an improvement because of wider roads and driveways over what existed for the 3 large lot easement subdivisions already approved for the site. The fire marshal is supportive of this variance, and staff is supportive as well, given the overall benefits of this plan versus the previously approved plans. Once detailed construction and engineering plans are prepared in conjunction with the submittal of a preliminary plat, changes to the layout, including the potential for a reduction of lots, may be necessary. A landscaping plan will also be required. Staff recommends approval of this concept plan along with the above noted variance request with the following conditions. The preliminary plat must address the following. 1, submission of roads, drainage, and erosion control plans for review and approval by the county engineer. And 2, submission of water plans for review and approval by HP&TS Utility District. The final plat must address the following. 1, a permit will need to be obtained for the security gate prior to its installation, and all requirements for such gates as outlined in Section 17.11 of the zoning ordinance will need to be met. 2, prior to consideration of final plat approval, the applicant shall submit HOA documents for review and approval by the county attorney's office. The HOA document shall address the requirements of Section 17.12, private streets of the zoning ordinance, as well as the sprinkling of all structures and the requirement that residential driveways must be at least 12 feet in width. The HOA documents must be submitted with the final plat, and the approved HOA documents must be recorded concurrently with the recording of the final plat. 3, establishment of a performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control. 4, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of HB&TS Utility District. 5, submission of landscaping plans and establishment of a performance bond for landscaping improvements. 6, execution of performance agreements for the above referenced sureties. 7, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And 8, submission of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plane Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the plat.
Thank you, sir. Any comments or questions on item number 20? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Oops, sorry. Mr. Crohan?
My question would be for the applicant is, as far as where the gate is going to be, how much room will there be for cars to be able to stop before they can go through the gate? So backing up traffic to the road.
There's somebody from the applicant here? State your name, please.
Hey, good evening, Nathan McVeigh with T-Square Engineering. So the gate will be located, you see the horseshoe, when you come into the subdivision, there's a horseshoe that kind of comes back out. It'll be located behind that horseshoe. And that's in an effort, if someone pulls in and not supposed to be pulling in, they can turn around. The cluster mailbox unit will also be located right there by the road. So the postal service will be able to drop off there and turn around. So there'll be a significant amount of length of roadway between the access off of Hargrove to the gate. But the gate will be located behind that horseshoe bend you see.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions on item 20? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Thank you, sir.
It's included in the recommendations. But it would probably be helpful if you would, if you're so inclined, to move for approval along with the variance request and also the staff recommendations.
Staff's recommendation and the variance request for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to preliminary plats, item number 21, Commissioner McCord. Thank you. Preliminary plat revised review of the homes at Mulberry Meadows subdivision containing 27 lots on 198.4 acres located off Teleferro Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A revised concept plan for this development appeared as item 19 on this agenda. A preliminary plat for this subdivision was approved at the October 2022 meeting. During the course of preparing the first final plat, a surveying error was discovered. The error involves two of the property's perimeter boundary lines, which are found behind lots 101 through 115. This revision corrects these errors. No other changes are proposed, and provided that item 19 on this agenda is approved, staff recommends approval with the same conditions established with the original approval.
Thank you. Any further questions on item number 21? Hearing none, do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 22, preliminary plat review for Gray Barn Farms located large lot easement subdivision containing 5 lots on 109.92 acres located off Kennard Springs Road in the 9th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please note that there is a revised staff report in front of you. I'll be reading from that revised report. At this time, the applicant is requesting deferral to the August 2023 Planning Commission meeting to allow for more time to address staff comments.
Sir, do we have any comments or a motion? Have a second? I have a second on, let's vote, please. Thank you. Moving on to item 23, preliminary plat revised. Review of Troubadour Golf and Field Club, Phase 1, containing 170 lots on 648.01 acres off Cox Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A revised preliminary plat for this phase of the development was approved at the September 2018 meeting. A revised concept plan for the overall development was approved at the June 2023 meeting. The applicant is now requesting approval of a revised preliminary plat for Phase 1 of the development in order to adjust the phase's boundary lines so as to incorporate additional acreage into the phase, which will be added to Lot 251. There are no other changes proposed, and the number of lots in this phase will remain the same. Required roadway improvements associated with this phase of the development have already been constructed. The revised preliminary plat is consistent in layout with that depicted on the revised concept plan, and therefore, staff recommends approval with the same conditions that were established in conjunction with the approval of the revised concept plan in June 2023.
Thank you. Any comments on item 23? Do I have a motion? Second. Motion and a second. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 24, preliminary plat review for Arrington Woods subdivision containing 11 lots on 89.48 acres located off Nolensville Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
A revised concept plan for this development was approved at the May 2023 meeting. The applicant is now requesting preliminary plat approval for the subdivision, which includes 11 lots and approximately 18 acres of open space. The open space includes a large portion of the Triune fortifications, which are important Civil War-era features that are listed on the Secretary of Interior's National Register of Historic Places. Upon final plat recordation, these areas will be transferred to the Franklin Battlefield Trust, who will own and maintain these historic features and place them within a permanent conservation easement. As discussed during concept plan review, the roadway accessing lots 7 through 11 will traverse existing openings in the Triune fortifications. Because of that, the applicant had previously proposed a reduced roadway section to include 8-foot lanes and 2-foot shoulders in this area. However, the county's Fire Services Department has expressed a desire for a 22-foot cross-section in this area, which will consist of 10-foot lanes and 1-foot shoulders. The roads will be privately maintained. This preliminary plat is consistent in layout with that depicted on the approved concept plan, and staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat with the following conditions, which must be addressed in conjunction with final plat consideration. 1, prior to consideration of final plat approval, the applicant shall submit HOA documents for review and approval by the county attorney's office. Such documents shall include provisions regarding the protection of the Triune fortifications on the property. The approved HOA documents must be recorded concurrently with the recording of the final plat. 2, in conjunction with final plat recordation, open space areas containing the Triune fortifications shall be transferred to the Franklin Battlefield Trust, who will place these areas into a permanent conservation easement. 3, establishment of a performance bond for roads, drainage, and erosion control. 4, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of Nolensville College Grove Utility District. 5, submission of landscaping plans and establishment of a performance bond for landscaping improvements. 6, execution of performance agreements for the above referenced sureties. 7, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And 8, submission of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plan Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the plat.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on item number 24? Do I have a motion? Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Yes. Let's vote, please. All right. Motion passes. Moving on to item 25, preliminary plat review for Copper Canyon large lot easement subdivision containing 5 lots on 54.12 acres off Nathan Smith Road in the 2nd voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, staff is recommending deferral to the August 2023 Planning Commission meeting to allow the applicant more time to address staff comments.
Thank you. Do we have any comment or on item 25? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you. Let's vote, please. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 26, preliminary plat review for Troubadour Golf and Field Club, Phase 5, containing 5 lots, containing 4 lots on 7.01 acres located off of Cox Road in the 5th voting district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A revised concept plan for this development was approved by this body at the June 2023 meeting, and the applicant is now requesting preliminary plat approval for the 5th phase of the development, which contains 4 lots and 1 acre of open space. The roads within this development will be private. The plat is consistent in layout with that of the revised concept plan. Preliminary plat is in order, and staff recommends approval with the following conditions, which must be addressed with final plat submittal. Number 1, in conjunction with final plat submittal, the applicant shall submit HOA documents for review and approval by the county attorney's office. Excuse me. The approved HOA documents must be recorded concurrently with the recording of the final plat. Number 2, establishment of performance bonds for roads, drainage, and erosion control. Number 3, establishment of a performance bond for water improvements in favor of Millcrofton Utility District and/or Nolensville College Grove Utility District as applicable. Number 4, establishment of a performance bond for the wastewater collection system. Number 5, submission of performance agreements for the above referenced sureties. Number 6, execution of a stormwater maintenance agreement and submission of an operation and maintenance plan for stormwater improvements. And number 7, submission of the approved final plat in DWG format on recordable media based on the Tennessee State Plan Coordinate System prior to signature and recording of the plat.
Thank you. Any comment or question on item number 26? Yes, Commissioner Rose.
And on item number 3, talks about Millcrofton and Nolensville College Grove. Is that subdivision, parts of it one and one of those utility districts and part of it another utility?
That is correct, yes, ma'am. It's split. And so I believe that this section is in Millcrofton's utility district.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on item 26? Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes. Final plats, items 27 and 28 were on the consent agenda. So that is the end of our order of business. Any other business? Do we have a motion for adjournment? So moved. Thank you.